This is the Effing One Podcast, Australia's only Formula One podcast with Adam and Luke.
G'day and welcome to the Effing One Podcast, the only podcast that gives up before a season ends. The little Aussie battler podcast that punches one hand behind its back while the other one punches itself in the face over and over. The 2022 version of this podcast now has 50% off. Adam has moved aside, citing what happened in Abu Dhabi wasn't fair, and he had a family that needs to tend to for some reason. And just like that, and COVID, he's gone. And a new war has opened up. A war between a Russian bullshit artist or a fertilizer company and the rest of the world. But Mazepin is now out of Formula One. But we're all about peace and serenity, laugh and gentle sexual persuasions, which leads to full-blown, raw-dogged bum fun. Now, let's do a little bit of a catch-up on 2021. There's an elephant in the room, and I'm keen on some ivory. So 2021, it ended in Abu Dhabi. Max versus Lewis, final lap of the final Grand Prix of the season. Tied on points. Whoever wins, wins the championship. Now, I will do a quick rollback and exactly what happened in Abu Dhabi. Now, this is how I saw it. Lap 1, Lewis cuts the corner. He didn't give the lap back. He didn't give the gap back, not in the slightest. Did he gain or maintain a lasting advantage? Yes, of course he did. We could all see that. Should there have been a penalty? Yes. But the stewards did say to Mercedes, give the gap back. And apparently he did. Max pits, Lewis pits, Perez does a stellar job holding him up. Something the other Finn, Valtteri Bottas, couldn't do if the roles were reversed. He cut the gap from 9 seconds between Lewis down to Max, down to a 1.09 seconds when Lewis finally got past Perez, and Perez then let Max pass. Excellent job, Checo. And when Lewis did make his overtake that stuck, he did block Perez, which is something he didn't do on lap 1 against Max. And he didn't do later on. But Lewis pulls away. Raikkonen retires from the race and from Formula One. Then Russell retires. Giovinazzi retires and says arrivederci to F1 as he lost his job delivering pizzas for Alfa Romeo. And with Giovinazzi's retirement, there's a virtual safety car. Max pits for fresh hards on lap 37. Gap now 17.9 seconds. 10 laps to go. It's now 11.5 seconds. Yes, this is the fast-forward version of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Horner resigned to a loss with 10 laps to go. He was on the radio to Sky and this, we need a miracle. And on lap 53, Nicholas Latifi bust his nut at turn 14 and there's a safety car. Now, when you're P2 in a race or when there's a virtual safety car or a safety car, you can take the gamble. You can put whatever tyres you want on. If you're in the lead, you have to have that gap and maintain that gap to decide to go, yep, we'll come in. Lewis didn't. Lewis already shaking his head when the safety car came out, knowing the advantage that he had for the whole Grand Prix and the championship in his grasp was about to be whittled away to nothing. Just like when Peter whittles away the awards that we give out after each Grand Prix. Now, what Mercedes has to decide is, will this be a 6-lap safety car? Is there damage enough to the guardrail? Is this going to be long enough that we can keep Lewis out? Now, they did have some mediums out in the pit lane, and they weren't for Bottas, but he didn't get called in. Now, they can give up track positions for fresh rubber, which some say he should have done. But what if the safety car goes 1 lap longer and then ends under the safety car, and then they pit and give the World Championship to Max? If he does pit, does that force Max to pit as well, to put on fresh rubber, being a sitting duck on about 20-lap-old hard tyres? They may have. Or they would have just taken the same situation and then take that track position to what Lewis and Mercedes did. So they really didn't have much to choose from in terms of strategy, but Red Bull did. They had a lot to gain by throwing shit against the wall and see what sticks. So Max pits for softs. Now, there's no Bottas to get in the way and make strategy a difficult call. If Bottas was there or thereabouts, he could have been in that gap and being able to force Max to be in a situation where if he pits, he's then behind him. But Bottas is back in the field, back in 6th, and that's not going to help anyone, especially his teammate. Perez pits. Hamilton had mediums, as I said before, but no call to come in. But being the leader, you can't take risks. Red Bull Racing can being second. Now, lap 56 of 58, the crane takes the Williams away. 3 laps to go. And they have a precedent for not letting unlapped cars, which is what they announced. They said lapped cars will not be able to unlap. Christian Horner quickly got onto his Winger meter, pressed the button and complained to Michael Massey, as he always does. Max was saying, yep, typical decision. And they had the decisions go against him in terms of lap 1, where they didn't tell Lewis to give the place back, but actually to reduce the gap. And then they've decided that the lap cars will not be able to unlap. So Red Bull are thinking, everything's against us, we're not going to win this. Horner gets on, has a bit of a whinge, and Massey just says, hey, I'm just trying to clear this incident up. Now, it takes 2 minutes and 25 seconds for the safety car to do a lap. Well, that was the one that on that particular lap with 3 laps to go, I did a quick time of how long it took for that to happen. Now, with 2 laps to go, green light comes on the safety car, and the announcement goes out to the teams that 5 drivers are allowed to pass the safety car and unlap. Now, that green light came on the safety car at turn 6. So as the safety car was turning into turn 6, that notice went out to the teams. So then the drivers were then notified that they needed to go, and then they went. 5 cars within the turn 8, which is more of a kink, down to turn 9, which is a left-hand hairpin. It's a wider hairpin than it used to be. The 5 cars managed to get past within that time. Now, I don't think Max deserved the championship based on Abu Dhabi. Max deserved the championship for all the races before. He had bad luck in Baku. He had bad luck in Britain when Lewis punted him off, as we all know, into that corner where he hit a massive G-force, busted his car and his ass. But Lewis fought back as he does. And with that last race, they had this championship tied. Now, my analysis of the situation between those cars is that Lewis couldn't pit. He should have, because that would have forced Red Bull into a very difficult situation. Do we stay out or do we come in? Do we take that track position that Lewis has given up, or do we just come in for fresh tyres as Lewis would have? Did Lewis block at any point in that final lap? No. Now, the rules are unlapping the cars. Now, there was 3 more cars that needed to be unlapped. Now, it took 24 seconds from the time that green light went on the entry to turn 6, 24 seconds for Vettel, the 5th car in line, to actually pass the safety car. Could 3 more cars have passed the safety car in a couple of corners? Given this is a slow section, but cars have to travel within 10 places, 10 car lengths to the previous car as part of the safety car regulations. So would it have happened that Ricciardo, Stroll, who were just behind Max, and Mick Schumacher be able to overtake the safety car and therefore everyone gets their lap back? Or do they just pass the 5 cars and go, these are the 5 cars that need to get out of the way of the 2 that are racing in the championship? Now, the late safety car screwed Lewis. He knew from that point on that it screwed Lewis. The whole point of them saying they may not unlap, that's irrelevant. They changed their mind and said, right, we'll unlap the cars. Now, they could have. This was on the second last lap that they decided to unlap the cars. The cars were well ahead, were never going to be impacted. The amount and how slow Lewis and Max went to let them pass. Now, the safety car could have slowed down. If they were going to let the 8 cars go past instead of the 5. They could have slowed down the safety car a smidge, and we've got all those cars past. Then there's no controversy. For them to say, listen, we're focused on these two. This is not a... This was either they all unlapped themselves or 5 unlapped themselves. This isn't about keep the lap cars between. It was a dry race. Ever since these rules, the only way they won't unlap cars and they have a precedent is for a wet race. They didn't do that. This was a dry race. So it was either 5 cars unlapped themselves or 8 cars unlapped themselves. Lewis is in the same position. Max is in the same position. The same tyre combination. That's just the way it is. And that's just a shit way of it happening. As soon as that safety car was called, as soon as Latifi put in the wall, it was going to happen. We all knew that was going to happen. Lewis immediately shook his head and knew, if we have a safety car, I lose all my advantage that he'd worked the whole race to do. If Max didn't pit, bang, he's right behind Lewis. But Max did, so he was behind some lap cars. All those lap cars were going to be let go. And Max is going to have Daniel Ricciardo, who's right up his ass, Stroll, who was behind them as well. Mick Schumacher was probably 3 cars back. Now, how fast a Formula 1 car goes around a corner is much, much quicker than a safety car. And those cars going at that speed. So they could have got all 8 cars. Then there's no controversy. They could have done that. Safety car calls in by around turn 14. Then Lewis backs him up. You've got plenty of time and opportunity to get these cars in and around to get the race in what people say legitimacy of it happening. It's unfortunate what happened to Lewis. It's unfortunate for Formula 1 and how it happened. But it did. It's a new year. We have a new era of cars. And hopefully, everyone can put the shit show of what happened in Abu Dhabi to bed. Do I think Michael Massey was unfair to get let go? Fucking oath I do. I think anyone would have said, yep, unlap the cars. That's not in, trying to take Lewis Hamilton's championship away from him, but that's what happened. If there was no safety car, Lewis wins the championship. There was a lot of hate, a lot of fucking death threats towards Nicholas Latifi, and that's not right. That's not fair. He was trying to pass Mick Schumacher for fuck all. And that's what happens with Grand Prix. You get drivers with slow cars battling for fucking not get a point in the third championship, which I can understand. No one wants a point in the third championship, but when you fight and battle for no points, you can't just say the guys from 11th to 20th, hey guys, step away in the final races, final laps of the race. We don't want you guys to get involved. It happened. People have accidents, people have mistakes. But I don't think it's fair on Michael Massey, and there's Lewis Hamilton fans that, yep, Lewis deserved it. And if it was the race ended before that safety car, he wins the championship. He wins the championship in a canter. But unfortunately with motorsport, these rules suck. Could we change the rules? Fucking oath we could. We could, as soon as that car crashed, within 5 laps at the end of a race, go, nope, we're causing a red flag. And we're not going to, and because it's under 5 laps, we're going to do a rolling start, not a standing start. Because everyone had gaps. Everyone had where they were. And to be side by side or 8 meters behind on the other side of the road, I don't think it's fair when it's 5 laps to go. So maybe bring in, if a crash happens for a safety car and there's 5 laps to go, red flag. Restart the race as a rolling start, which we have done before, but only within 5 laps. So there still can be a possibility of racing, but it's not a clear disadvantage to the driver who's in the lead. Someone who'd worked the whole race to be in the lead for that race. Therefore, it's fair. If it's red flag, everyone can change tyres. If you got shit to fix, fix it. Or, if we do what happens in other series under red flag, you don't touch the cars at all. That's just my take on it. I would prefer a 5-lap red flag on a safety car. Come in, pit, rolling start, 4 laps to go as you come over the start-finish line. You can overtake from the safety car line, which is normally before the start-finish line. Just to give a bit of fairness to the people who deserve their positions, instead of it being taken away from them. Instead of dumping someone who enforced the rules, and yes, I still think that 3 cars could have made it past so there would be no controversy. Any cars being unlapped, fuck Lewis. Latifi, fuck Lewis. The situation safety car, fuck Lewis. But I don't think it was a way to manufacture a championship. Anyone who is happy what happened to Lewis, you're a fucking asshole. Simple. And if you listen to this and you're happy that Lewis had this championship taken away from him in unfair circumstances, and I'm talking unfair as in the world. I'm not talking about unfair by sporting regulations. I'm talking it's just shit luck. Then you can just go, yeah, not one driver would go, that's how I'd want to lose a championship. That's a fair way to lose. It's not. But that's what happened. And it's 2022, and I'm finally talking about it. Adam won't because he's a bit butthurt about it. He didn't want Max to win the championship, and understandably so. He's a bit of a twat. But did Lewis block? No. That's another thing. Lewis didn't block at any point. Hopefully next time, someone will block. It could be the same situation that happened in Baku with Daniel Ricciardo. You block, I'm going to crash into the back of you. Could happen what happened at Monza. He goes over the top of him. Who's at fault? Max is at fault. And then it takes into deliberately taking a driver out, which is what Schumacher did back in 1997. Had all of his points taken off him, excluded from the championship. So put that into perspective. He could have done that. And then there is precedent for someone being removed from the championship by their points. Block. It's the last lap of the last Grand Prix. You're tied on points. Put your elbows out. He didn't. He conceded. He could have fought harder. And he knows he could have as well. He had old tyres. Fuck, you can put that car, make it 3 meters wide. But he didn't. Was he resigned to it? I don't know. But it was an unfortunate way to end a championship. It was a sour note to end a championship on a championship that was both drivers deserved it. They both deserved to win it. But only one can. And it's that Belgian-born Dutch freak with the weird teeth. A man who has lips way too big to be natural. And that is a wrap-up of the shit show that was the last Grand Prix of 2021. Lewis and Bottas win the team championship with constructors for Mercedes. I don't know how many headphones Toto broke over the season. It's quite phenomenal. And I do want to let you all know in the tipping competition, I did win. Sorry, guys. Cliff, you finished on 295. Pat Foley on 292. Marcus 280. Jimmy on 300. And myself on 307. Pete and Adam still struggling on 253. It was a tough weekend. I got up by 7 points. I got a good final result of 14 on the final weekend. And the 5 points I got from saying all the Millionaire boys would finish ahead of their teammates in the previous Grand Prix. I think it was a Saudi Grand Prix that made it happen. That kind of gave me a bit of breathing space. I won it. I award myself absolutely nothing. But this season is still going. We will have the tipping competition. I've updated. I just need to chuck Nico Hülkenberg in replace of Sebastian Vettel. If you haven't heard, Sebastian has the spicy cough of COVID, and he has been replaced by Nico Hülkenberg, or as we call him, Hulkenback. He's back in Formula One. One of my favourite drivers, underrated drivers who've never really achieved his potential. But then again, when he was in there, there was probably some situations, some scenarios that he could have got more results while he was in F1. But the third championship, I know you're all keen on it. Me Too Mazepin taking it out in a canter, 328 negative points ahead of Junior Schumacher on 295. And Latifi finished in the wall and minus 227 points. Then we got Swery Tsunoda, Boy George Russell, last lap Raikkonen, Daddy's Boy Stroll, Pizza Delivery Guy Giovinazzi, Other Finn Bottas, Fingerboy Vettel, French Stick Ocon, Lafonso Alonso, Tijuana Tussler Perez, Gasman Gasly, Mad Max Verstappen, The Chosen One Leclerc, The Personality Ricciardo, Douche Canoe Hamilton, Chuck Norris, Hand in the Paddock Kubica, and Minifons Sainz getting negative 2 points. Congratulations, Mazepin. You lose your drive, but you win the third championship of 2021. Now, everyone wanted to win that, but only you could really show how shit you are, and you get home with a lovely piece of Peter Nard or turd that has been expertly whittled by his sphincter on top of a lovely slice of oak that he carved up earlier in the year. Now we have the F1 Podcast Award. It was Michael Massey for making Formula One great again. That's just kind of a dig. I don't think he deserved his firing, as I've said, but good luck to whatever he does, and let's hope he never has to make a difficult decision like that again. The Yuji Ide Award for wasting everyone's time. It's Nikita Mazepin. Not only did he waste everyone's time, he wasted his dad's money. Hundreds of millions of dollars of his dad's money to just fucking drive around the world. I did watch a bit of the Drive to Survive, and he was very happy in one of the Grand Prix that he beat his teammate. And his teammate retired from the race. So if that's what he has to look forward to, you are in it to win it, Nikita. The Likert Sendet Award, well, of course, is going to go to the world champion Max Verstappen on his overtaking maneuver for the World Championship. The Pastor Maldonado Award, well, can it go to anyone else other than Nicholas Latifi for binning it? Oof, that was painful. The Green Award is going to Kimi Raikkonen for his early retirement. The Speckled Gym Medal points. It's Perez. He gets 3 for his incredible work holding up Lewis. And then we have Verstappen gets 2 and Sainz gets 1. The Caviar Cup, Latifi finished ahead of Russell because Russell retired. The Having a Crack Award is Red Bull Racing. So you'll get a delicious baggie of crack at the next Grand Prix in Bahrain. We managed to smuggle that in. We'll talk to Kubica about handing out those awards from last year. And the Your Shit award goes to Nikita Mazepin. Well, for just being outright shit. And the Speckled Gym Medal Award did end up going to Max Verstappen by 1 point ahead of Lewis Hamilton. There was no stewards' inquiry into that. There was no controversy, but Lewis just lucked out on the Speckled Gym Medal, which the previous year was won by Daniel Ricciardo. Now, I think that's 2021 done, dusted, and put into the bin. Now, news. F1 news. It's a bit weird not having Adam around, but I'll try and make this as interesting as possible. Now, Ricciardo tested positive for COVID. Preseason test number 2. Ricciardo misses out, and Lando Norris basically just drove around and his brakes on fire for 3 days as they had some brake issues, overheating in the desert of Bahrain. Sebastian Vettel got COVID on, I think it was Thursday morning they found out, and they have flown Nico Hülkenberg, and he'll finally get a couple of days to actually get in the car. He hasn't driven these cars, and it's funny, there's not a lot of teams that put their spare driver into the cars to test them out. But there was only, I think it was 6 days of testing in pre-season, 3 in Barcelona, which wasn't televised, and 3 in Bahrain, which was apparently televised. But Australia misses out, of course. We have Fox Sports, who has the rights to Formula One here in the country, and then decides not to show Sky Sports' coverage. So fuck you, Fox Sports. What you could have done is just fuck off, and we'll buy F1 TV. We can watch all the live stuff. We can choose which camera angles we want, and then we don't have to pay for the whole fucking Foxtel package and Fox Sports to get Formula One. Don't be a dick, Foxtel. Either do it properly with your whole ass or fuck off. Anyway. Mazepin finally pays for the invasion of that girl's undercarriage. Yes, Mazepin, the previous season, did invade the underpants of a girl in the back seat of a car, which he posted on his Instagram story, which he quickly took down after there was revolt online. But karma finally gets him back. And the only person that's come back is Kevin Magnussen. Suck my balls, Magnussen. And he'll be up against Hulkenberg, which would be very interesting if they come together. And he might get to suck those balls one more time. And then we have Guan Yu Zhou, the Chinese driver. He is at Alfa Romeo. He replaces the pizza delivery guy Antonio Giovinazzi. Valtteri, the other Finn Bottas, who's the only Finn now. He is also at Alfa Romeo, leaving Mercedes. George Russell gets promoted from Williams up to the Mercedes-AMG Formula One team next to Lewis, which I think George might get the biscuits in that little lineup. Piastri was up for the McLaren reserve role if needed, and they've come to a conclusion. If Ricciardo or Lando Norris miss out on a Grand Prix due to COVID, Aussie F2, F3 champion Oscar Piastri will step in. The same happens if Ocon or Alonso get the spicy cough. They'll be out and Piastri will come in. But he's still, even if he drives for McLaren, he will still be under Alpine and their academy. But I'm looking forward. If there is an unfortunate phlegm in the back of one of those four drivers, we'll have another Aussie on the grid. The other interesting issue is porpoising. No, we're not talking about the marine mammals that have spade-shaped teeth. No, see, you didn't know that. They're spade-shaped. Go figure it out. This is when F1 cars carry ground effects. They get sucked down to the ground. Then the ground effects kind of stalls. Then they bounce back up. Then the wind pushes them back down. And they bounce up and down like they're on a fucking pogo stick. Now, looks like McLaren's got that sorted. Don't know why. Don't know how. They said it's kind of a fluke. Apparently some teams have taken some heavily revised floors to Bahrain. And it has lessened. But Bahrain is quite bouncy in general. So we'll see how the porpoising goes when you saw on board with the Ferrari or the Alpha Tauri of Gasly. You'd shake your fillings out. That's how bad the bouncing up and down is. And of course with testing comes sandbagging. And as there was sandbagging down in northern New South Wales where you had floods, there was sandbagging. Of course, when you post in some purple sectors, everyone pricks their ears up. And of course, Ferrari takes their foot off the gas so no one knows their true pace. George Russell says that after the first test, that McLaren and Ferrari look good. And then after the second test, they're suggesting that it's a Red Bull who brought a heavily revised car, as did Mercedes with their we don't want side pods, slick back look. It's like they've pinned their ears back to the back of the Mercedes, and there's a little tiny slot of an opening. And Mercedes reckon that it'll be the Red Bull and Ferrari ahead of them. They will not be chasing for Grand Prix wins, which we've heard that before from Mercedes, so it could be all bullshit. There is some new regulations this year. I'll try and run through them as quickly as possible. There's new 18-inch tyres, modernised to be more like the cars that we have on our road cars. We have wheel covers, back for the first time since 2009. They reduce turbulent air for the cars behind, so it smooths out the airs. And I think this is where McLaren had some of their issues in pre-season test Barcelona. They didn't have issues with the overheating of the brakes, but when they come to Bahrain, it's a little bit warmer than a wintry Bahrain. And of course, they've come out with some very warm brakes. And so they've got the wheel covers. Brake ducts have been reshaped for 2022 to send the turbulent air in an upward flow behind. Now, this is all in a way to try and eliminate the turbulent air behind the car, which means the car behind can follow quicker. And by being able to be closer to the car in front, you can promote more racing, wheel-to-wheel, closer racing than normally within a second of a car in front. You're going to have overheated tyres, you'll have turbulent air, you've got no downforce. And now with these cars which create a lot of downforce in the undercarriage, yes, that's right, Mazepin, the undercarriage, until they stall on porpoising, you'll have this closer race. And before I get on, we had some ideas at the F1 podcast making Formula One great again, and we came up with ground effect cars to bring them back. And what happened? They brought them back. So you're welcome, Formula One. Someone was listening. Someone opened that briefcase of genius ideas like reverse parking challenge, eating the local dish while qualifying. All of these fantastic ideas. Throwing marbles on, oil, water balloons. You name it, we've thought of it, and I'll be coming up with some more ideas as the season goes on. The other regulation change is front wing. A simpler and less intricate wing, meaning it works better in wake of the car in front. Now, they would have very complex front wings that would really... They needed a lot of wind and clean air to be able to create that downforce. Now, they're a little bit simpler, which they will be a little bit slower in slow corners because they don't have that front end grip because these front wings are simpler. Now, the end plates help reduce the turbulent wake. It's a little bit simpler as well. The wing height is higher to help avoid dirty air. So then it's had a bit of a nose lift. They look like they're a little bit sort of... Before, you would see the heavy rake cars of McLaren and the Red Bull especially, where you've got the front nose right down and you'll have the rear end pointing up, which was rake. We're not going to have as much of that this year. I think Red Bull is still working on that concept, trying to make it happen, but the wing height has been increased. Now, the dive plane, which is on the outside of the front wing, on the end plate there, it's a simpler setup and it assists with setting up the airflow around the front wing. And they do have connected flaps, which does happen to my mother on occasion. Connected flaps when it gets a little bit dry. It now simplified, and the flaps are directly connected to the nose and can be adjusted to tune the car's handling. Now the floor's new. A new floor creates suction, which is ground effects, and the cars stick to the road very well, like a vacuum. The underfloor tunnels, the new floor feature tunnels, one on each side for the air to rush through, and the ground acts of one side of the tunnel, which is how the floor uses the ground effect. And the final one, going to the rear wing. A new and improved rear wing has been optimized to make it easier for the cars to follow, but it still has DRS. The rolled tips part of the package to optimize and manage the wake for the car behind. So it's simplifying the air when it goes behind to the other cars, so it's not so disturbed and it gives them a chance to come closer. There is a beam wing, and the beam wing, which is under the main wing next to the exhaust near the rain light at the back. Now, the beam wing creates a strong upward flow of the car to throw the wake up over the top of the following car. All these ideas were made to make Formula One great again, to make the passing and racing a lot closer. Those are the new regulations. Now, the testing was pretty dominant. There was a lot of laps going around there. And it looks like Red Bulls, Ferraris, they're all kind of up there, thereabouts. If you look at Verstappen, did the best lap of the second pre-season test. He was on the C5 tyres. He did it on the last day. He did a 1 minute 31.720. Mick Schumacher in the Haas did it on a C4 tyre with a 1 minute 32.241. Alpine, Ferrari, Mercedes, Alfa Romeo, AlphaTauri, all taking times up there within the top 10. Magnussen was up there as well. Bottas did them on the C3 tyres. He was based in 6th position. Then you got AlphaTauri, Tsunoda, Perez, Norris, Magnussen, Sainz, Vettel, Gasly, Zhou, Stroll, Hamilton, Ocon, Albon, Latifi, and Fittipaldi, who drove for Haas when Mazepin has been pulled from the team, as has the sponsor Uralkali. Where are they going to get the money from? Don't know. Should they have sold to Andretti a couple of years ago? They probably should have. Hopefully Andretti still makes it in Formula 1. It would be great to have that name there, and they'll always, of course, bring an American driver with them. Do we know how much weight is in the cars? Do we know how much weight Max Verstappen how much fuel was in the car when he made that lap? We don't know. We don't know how much fuel anyone happened. Did Schumacher's second fastest lap have a thimble of fuel left in it, or was he chock-a-block and Haas is the dark horse of the season? I don't think so. I think the idea of Schumacher being up there in P2, which is good, shows they have pace. Maybe they did it on an empty tank just to try and get some sponsors to come in and think that they have some pace in the car. Now, Williams used to do that when Mark Webber was there. They dumped a bunch of fuel in, put out some good times because they knew the car was a piece of shit. Maybe it might get some investors in to get them eager and looking. Now we move to Bahrain. It's the tyres for the Bahrain Grand Prix. I'm looking forward to this one. We're looking at the C1, C2, C3. So these are the 3 hardest compounds of the Pirelli range of 5 that they have. Now, the minimum starting pressures, if you're interested, I know you all are, 22.5 psi in the front and 20.5. They are the minimum starting pressures. Now, the camber limit, it's 3.5 degrees on the front and 2.0 degrees on the rear. Look at that. We've got more information this year. We don't fuck about. Now, the race distance is 308.238 kilometres. We've got 57 laps of the Sakhir circuit. Circuit length of 5.412 kilometres. The lap record is Pedro de la Rosa back from 2005 with a 1 minute 31.447. Now that is the preview. Now it's a bit windy there. They might get a chance of a drizzle, which is very rare. Only happens like 3 or 4 times a year in Bahrain. They might get some drizzle on Saturday, and some windy conditions are there already. I think that's why Sebastian isn't racing. It's not COVID, it's because he doesn't want his wig to fall off. Now, he had some very significant hair loss early in the year, and this year he has got a mop on top. So we wouldn't be surprised if he's wearing the F1 podcast hair hat to keep that bald spot away from the cameras. Now, the times of this weekend's Bahrain Grand Prix, we have Auckland, New Zealand, 4 a.m. Monday morning. Sydney, Australia, 2 a.m. Monday morning. Brisbane, 1 a.m. Adelaide, 1:30 a.m. I'm including you, Adelaide. You're very welcome. I normally don't do that because you are What did Aurelio Vidal, as a soccer coach for the Adelaide Strikers, he called it Adelaide, a pissant town. Perth, Australia, Sunday, 11 p.m. Kathmandu, Nepal, 8:45 p.m. on the Sunday. Russia, Moscow, 6 p.m. Ukraine, Kiev, 5 p.m. Denmark, Copenhagen, we're looking at 4 p.m. Then we've got London, England, 3 p.m. New York, United States of America on the East Coast there is 11 a.m. And Los Angeles on the West Coast is 8 a.m. Sunday morning. What a great way to start a Sunday morning. Start with the Grand Prix, watch the race, start the season good. Now this year I do have making F1 great again, the ideas and the recent inclusions of ground effects cars, which was our idea, as I mentioned before. We have been pressed to come up with some more genius ideas. And this year's first idea for Formula 1 is my red flag idea, which I pinned at the start when we talked about 2021. If there is 5 laps to go of a Formula 1 race, red flag it if there's a safety car, bring everyone into the pit lane, get it all cleaned up. Get on it if everyone needs to change tyres, fix their nose, fix a rear wing, get a drink, take a piss, whatever you want to do. But there's a red flag and it's a rolling restart, so it's not unfair to the people who have deserved their position. And then you can still race, you can still fight. And as usual, no DRS until after 2 laps after a safety car. But if it's a safety car within 5 laps of a Grand Prix ending, let's go to a red flag, let's get them in pit lane, let's get them all fairly adjusted instead of letting P2 do whatever they want and therefore having a situation with what happened in Abu Dhabi. That's my ideas to make Formula 1 great again. Make it better than what it was. And we've got some new awards coming in this year. We've got the Christian Horner, the Whiny Bitch Award for Best Spray/Whinge of the Weekend. So if you have an incredibly whiny, whingy radio call or in a press conference, we're giving them the Christian Horner Award. And of course, we have the usual Speckled Jim Medal, the Green Award, the Yuji Ide Award, the Pasta Maldonado Award, the Lickett and Sended Award, and the Turd Championship. If we do have any particular your shit moments, we will put that in as well. And I'm sitting down in my beautiful throbe. That's right, it's called a throbe. It's a Bahraini robe. A throbe. And I'm sitting here eating my beautiful lamb's head with a fisheye soup, which comes compliments of my mother. Thank you, Mum. And enjoy Bahrain this weekend. Enjoy the Formula 1 season. And I'll see you on the socials. If you have any comments, queries, like, subscribe, all that usual shit, leave us a comment. And I will talk to you after the Bahrain Grand Prix. Enjoy.